Okay, everybody, let's sit down. We're ready to get started on the next session. Many of you already know our next presenter. He's very active on the used list. He's the person, I guess, most noted for his exquisite graphic design sensibilities. And he's done...
Not everyone can be Scott Rossi.
That's right. Yeah.
You don't want to be. You don't want to be.
And every year he shows up and he gives us, he shows us things that Rev can do that no one can believe, and I'm sure this year will be no exception. So let's give a big round of applause to Scott Rossi.
Chip, I just wanted to tell you, with your interface designer you're showing next door, you're putting me out of a job. Thank you. All right, so I know the time's going to be pretty limited, so I'll try to go through this stuff pretty quick. Well, I shouldn't do this. My bio thing said, mentioned street performers, so I'm going to try this. Not so great. Anyway, I got that out of the way. All right, so what for those of you that maybe are not familiar with some of the stuff I do a lot of graphics work, which some of it involves Revolution, some of it doesn't. Actually, the majority of it doesn't. But I'm still pretty enthusiastic about doing stuff in Revolution, and especially with the translucency and transparency support, I think you can do some interesting stuff. Really quickly, a couple of examples here. This is a front end for a kind of like a media center application that was developed for Logitech. This was a prototype for it. This is all just a rev stack. Has some images that are changing. Has some transparent blocks that are moving up and down. Swapping out some images. This was done as a prototype to show them how the menu system could work. It wasn't used for anything that they produced or released, but more to show engineers and marketing people what might be possible with the UI. Do a lot of custom UI work. This is another thing. This was shocking to me because they actually wanted to release this, and they are. They have a gaming mouse, which they are targeting toward really hardcore gamers that want to set the resolutions of their mice to different settings depending on how you're moving to play games. You want like really fast or slow tracking. So, you know, for better or for worse, they have that, and so we needed a UI that would accommodate both X and Y settings independently of each other, and we came up with this slider thing right here, which visually reinforces the setting for each of the X, Y. You can drag it around there. You can add, these are all the presets here on the side. And I was just, my jaw dropped because they went for this. They're like, oh, that's cool, we want to use that. Like, really? You want to use this? Conservative? Okay, great. Conservative Logitech wants to use this. So anyway, they were pretty into it, and they actually built it. And again, this was done as a prototype. The great thing about it was I could build this in about a week, and they could test it internally and get feedback on it before actually committing their engineering to do it. And it worked out really well in terms of getting feedback and, you know, showing the gamers and say, you know, would you use something like this? Whether they would actually use resolution setting to begin with is another story. But anyway, they said, well, it looks good. Okay, good. Good enough. All right, so really quickly, get started here. That's what we're going to talk about today. A lot of the stuff I do, I play around a lot with Rev and a lot of the stuff that it can do in terms of visuals and some animation to a degree. I still think that things like Flash and stuff are better suited to animation, and would like to see kind of a more better integrated union between something like Rev and Flash. But you know, we have some stuff we can work with. And so what I want to show today are some things that, just conceptually, you don't take notes on this stuff. You don't need to take notes. Most of the stuff that I'm showing here will be available on the thumb drive, and just kind of look and see if you can kind of grasp the concepts. And I'm sure you could. I mean, they're really not that hard. So first, I'm just going to look at a thing right here that we've got Hopefully it's coming across. We've got a ping image here, a PNG image, which when you look closely at it, you can see that the outside edges of it are anti-aliased, they're smooth, there's a drop shadow, there's some transparency going on the inside, but the outside edge is opaque and you can drag it around. And you know, you can bounce things around the screen, and you know, we've all seen these for years. This is nothing really new. But up until recently, you know, the thought, at least for me, was, you know, wouldn't it be great if we could apply this kind of effect to things that were outside the limitations or the restrictions of a stack? Okay. So here's magic trick number one. This is a stack. This is an anti-alias stack, which has transparency. You can see through it. I can drag it over everything. There's no smoke and mirrors. And this is the deep masks effect that the Rev guys have added. I know a lot of you think this is gratuitous, but for me, I've been waiting years for this kind of stuff. So you might be disappointed there are no bug fixes while I'm jumping up and down. So sorry. If I take this apart, you can see this is just a stack. This is an image. This is the mask that's used to draw the stack to render what things are opaque and what things are transparent. This is just an image that sits in front of it. So when I put that back together, you can see it's just a stack. Nice. Okay. Let's go to the next card. This is a scrolling list. You can see I can select things. Pretty straightforward. Nothing magical about this. I'm going to put an image on the card, and you can see if you look closely at this. If you look closely at this, it's got a little translucency, got a highlight, got an inner shadow. Oh, you might be able to make out there's like a little grid in there. Anyway, I'm going to put this in front of the field, and then suddenly the field becomes unusable. That's like, oh man, that's not good. But if I do a little hocus pocus magic, suddenly I can click through the image. Because whereas before the image was blocking access to the field, now there's a little 3-4 line script down here that basically calculates the offset, takes into account the scroll of the field, and you can effectively click through the image and select the stuff in the field and select the highlighted line. So Chip, you're going to want to steal this, right? Interface designer. All right. Yeah. I should have said this is alt graphics, media, and magic. This is a progress bar. If you look closely at it, you'll notice there's something a little different about it. It's not straight. It's curved. If you look really closely at it, you can see that the edge of the progress bar is following the arc of the curve. It's staying perpendicular to the curve. There would be a lot of image ways you could do this, which would be very demanding and expensive, but an easier way to do this is to use this as a mask, and behind it is an arc graphic. So the arc graphic is basically just changing the start angle or the arc angle, I can't remember which, and just setting it. So you can see this is just a transparent image that's in front of it. I know Photoshop is daunting and beyond the scope of a lot of folks. I don't have a good solution for that other than to maybe get into the lower end one, I can't remember what it's called, Elements. I would assume Elements allows you to do, you know, ping images and stuff, but ping it's just a very powerful graphic format that I would highly encourage you to start looking at if you haven't already. Again, if you look really closely at this thing, you won't be able to see it there, but the right edge of this thing, if you look, I notice it because I work in graphics, this is jagged, it's aliased, because this is an arc angle in here, and I notice stuff like that. While that's a drawback, the benefit is because it's a graphic, I can change the back color dynamically. So if you want to have a progress bar that changes based on its current position or based on some other setting in the stack, the trade-off might be good because that's kind of useful. And I'm going to check one thing here. Well, maybe not. Let's see. Another possible feature, which is not, might go under the goofy workaround thing, but it's basically a way to do custom cursors. I'm going to drill the hell out of this stuff. By hiding the cursor and showing a stack at the location of the cursor globally, we can get the effect of a custom cursor, which a lot of people have wanted for a long time. This is not a foolproof means to do it, but I can move sliders if I switch to the pointer tool. I can reshape images. I can select stuff in fields. All the same stuff that you would do, click buttons, the same stuff that you would do with a regular cursor. It does have limitations, though. If I want to drag a window, oops. That's not good. But if I can fake that by putting in a drag, custom drag routine in the window, so it's possible to get around it. If you have a situation where you have control over the environment, where you're doing like an educational stack or a game or something like that, maybe you're masking off the background with the backdrop. That needs to be fixed, by the way. Kevin, are you here? Backdrops, fix them. Okay. If you're in that kind of a situation where you have control over the environment, this kind of a solution might be viable. So it's with the deep masks thing now, it especially looks good because everything's anti-aliased, translucent, looks really smooth. Definitely a good option in that kind of situation. Sometimes I get mad at the computer and why aren't you doing what I want? I don't know why I put this in there. I just thought it was funny. But each of these is a stack that gets cloned from one substack. So this is like a duplicated stack, and each one of them has the drag routine. So I can reposition the bullet holes as needed, and then I can get rid of them, clicking the safety on the gun and get it back. The only thing notable about this is that the gun's got a deep mask. Okay, so that's about it.
And I don't think the safety will erase the bullet holes.
All right, so now because I was thinking so far ahead, I brought everything for the audio except the plug. I'm going to have to kind of bend this down a little bit, but we're going to do a little audio stuff here. So I'll scooch down a bit. Sorry. All right. That's coming across. I don't know. You can turn that. This is a real audio meter that is measuring the output of a player object in Rev. And thanks to the awesome contributor Trevor DeVore, who added this feature to the enhanced QuickTime external, you can now measure the output, the audio output of a player object. The way that this is done uses some of the previous concepts, where if I click on, I gotta turn on this. If I click on the image that's in the front, if I grab it right, so you can see this is just a vector graphic that's just being bumped up and down. It's just setting its rect. It's nothing really phenomenal. But maybe the context can be a little more interesting. Maybe I don't want a rect. Maybe I want an oval. Again, just changing the rect of an oval graphic. But for people like Jerry next door who are old school hippies, maybe they want something more retro. Or maybe you want all of them. You want to do everything. I'm like, I got my Scion with the beat pumping, and I want, Rev is really good at this because each of these is vectors, and vectors are kind of really low overhead when they're not involved with too much translucency effect. So, that's another thing. Little subtlety that I try to build into stuff that I do. You'll notice when the audio's off, the meters drop down slowly. Just a little touch, which is something to add a little bit of reality or realism to it. Let's see, does anybody have any questions so far about anything? Anyone? Yeah.
Those meters?
Yes.
There are actually two images, a back image and a front one, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. In reality, there's three because there's a dark graphic behind it. But yeah, there's really only two. There's a foreground paint image, which is transparent, and creates the context of the these things. That's all just one paint image. And then behind.
But the Jerry's one.
Oh, Jerry's meter. Yeah.
It's
There's three images. This is the foreground ping.
Uh-huh.
This is a graphic, which a start angle, you know, that kind of stuff. And then this is just a graphic, an image behind it for
To
that.
see how they stack up.
Right, exactly. So there we go. This is going to be on the, after the presentation, I'll give this to Chris, and you can either get it later today, or I guess he's going to have it available for download. So you can take this apart and play with it and do all the stuff you want to do. Let's see. And some more stuff about, let's see, before I get into this. What is this now? I forget. Oh. One of the things that, again, is the deep masks thing is a new feature, and as with many new features, they will, you know, hopefully grow. There's an inherent way or inherent benefit that when they added this, whether it's due to Mark or whomever, that the deep mask, the masking of the window is cached. So that means that you can set the mask of a window to different images without refreshing the window in between. So when you do that, you can get something like this. It's not a speed demon, and it's not something that you can rely on you can do instantaneous changes to windows, no problem. If you're going to do an animated change like this, you know, especially on some slower machines, it might be a little, you know, clunk, 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 but it's possible. This is actually a pretty large one, and the performance is, you know, it's adequate. In my experience, it's a little bit less on Windows, but then again, I don't have a system with a great graphics card. So with a good graphics card, it might be acceptable too. And all this is a stack that has 24, you could call them frames really, but they're 24 ping images. So here's the first one, the starting image. And then if I jump up to like frame number 9, then it's, you know, ramped up that far. If I go, you know, to the next one, it works its way around. So it's basically setting the window shape of this window repetitively to mask 1, mask 2, mask 3, mask 4. Actually, I'm not sure if I put this one. I'll make sure I get this to Chris. I don't remember if I got this one on there. It's been a long few days. The last thing I want to show is it's not really a profound feature per se, but years ago I was developing a bunch of UIs for an online game, and this was one of the designs for the game, and I actually tried bringing this into previous versions of Rev with the custom mask, and I would drag this, and then about 2 seconds later, the mask would follow it. And I would drag it, and 2 seconds later, you know, I was like, oh my God, it's completely unusable. But now, I mean, this is like amazing. There's no performance hit for having really complex bitmaps where you have things knocking out and being opaque and transparent. I mean, you know, Mark acknowledged that this is in large majority due to the underlying support of the operating system. But, you know, let's take advantage of that. Let's use that and not worry about, you know, really complicated stuff. This does some little goofy animations in here, but, you know, that's not really important. Just to kind of show the concept that the masking stuff, it's great for stacks, and I hope to, well, hopefully over the next few months, it has some implications for doing things with, you know, translucent dragging between stacks of objects. I mean, there's a lot of benefits and applications that we can see beyond just a simple give your stack a goofy shape. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do with it. So, you know, I'm jumping up and down. What can I say? All right. So, a number of you have seen the product Harlequin that I mentioned a while ago. I've been like for 6 months harassing the Rev guys. It's like please, when are you going to get masked? Because this thing I've been working on for forever really needs the mask. So this is kind of the culmination of a lot of the concepts that we just saw, and kind of combines a lot of that together. And what this is a skinnable front end for Apple's iTunes application. And what it does is if you know your way around an image editor, you create your images for buttons, for sliders. All these things are all ping images. And you dump them into a folder, really a bundle. It has some XML in it that describes where do you want the positions of your objects to be, where do you want them to fall, how many windows do you want. In this case, it uses 4 to kind of, I think reasonably separate all the different kind of functions you want. But this actually uses AppleScript and then talks to iTunes and plays the tunes. It handles virtually all the playback aspects of iTunes. Well, let me back up. Okay, so we have playlists over here, which I think is a little bit beyond what the scope of most of the iTunes remotes offer right now. Is that basically all have play functionality, rewind, stop, but this actually goes and retrieves the playlist information. The track information is listed down here. There's equalizer settings, which all work. If I open this here, it's kind of fun. And really, I don't know if there's a real life-changing need for an application like this, but the idea is that we have a gazillion accessories for the iPods themselves, but not a lot of accessories for iTunes, for the application. And so that was the reasoning behind this, is an accessory for the iTunes application. I've tried to go in and mimic virtually everything that iTunes does, kind of down to disabling buttons when it reaches the ends of the tracks with no repeat. There's all the shuffle here. If I move on to other things, there's snapback, which takes you back to the thing you're playing. Over the last couple of days, I've been adding to progress, which this is probably going to throw up a dialogue error because I broke something somewhere, but this is ironic, which I'll show you in a minute. Anyway, all this is, if I have it open, do I have it here? So in these bundle things right here, if I show the contents of this is all just a bunch of loose PNG images. They're all just images. And then this is the layout file that defines how each one of the objects should be run in. You can customize font colors for the playlist, where everything is positioned, again, how many windows you have, where things should start. It looks a little daunting right here, but there actually is, along with all this stuff, an editor, which lists all the controls in there. You can click on these things. They highlight. I have a control for moving them around, and you'll see that in the properties down there on the right, the numbers update dynamically. There's actually a source view for this. This is kind of evil. This is actually the XML. You can go in there and change that directly. Right now, this is really the only way to edit this stuff, but I'm hoping to make it a bit more visual and more intimidating. There's not just one appearance for this, there's a bunch of appearances. I'm just going to show this one because it has a new slider control, which I've been kind of interested in doing for a long time, which is a radial progress bar. So you see the equalizer here with curved sliders. These are actually sets of images. With Harlequin, you can use JPEG, PNG, GIF. You can use a folder of PNG images, which will rename dynamically and build a set of frames so that it will. These are actually replacing frame images right here dynamically. There's a little pointless animation here. Here's the slider progress. So it's rotational. It works on the angle of the mouse relative to the position of the center of the thing and updates the playback dynamically. A little volume control. So, this is kind of going overboard with custom UI, but it's just something I have an interest in, so I'm hoping to do this well, as soon as possible. Get this available as something, as an accessory, hopefully before Apple does something similar. Who knows? I don't know what's going to happen. All right. Any questions about any of this stuff?
That's good stuff. Boy.
You basically use Flash and then bring everything back to Flash?
No, this is, the question was, did I use Flash to do this? No, there's no, it's all purely Revolution and Photoshop. I mean, yeah, you use a text editor to edit some of the XML, but that's about it.
Right, you're good. You're very good.
Why do you encourage the use of ping files?
Because they rule. Basically, the translucency. If you're doing anything that's not a rectangle, you'll get a jagged edge. If you do a circle with like a standard graphic, you get a jagged edge. With paint, you can have a smooth edge. You can have variable translucency in the image that blends against whatever's behind it, which if you've ever built anything like custom UI before now, if your images don't precisely line up when you're trying to position them on something that's not a flat color, if they're out by just 1 pixel, you see it, there's a seam. So you have to be really like pixel precise when you're doing stuff that doesn't have any translucency. But when you've got this, if you're out, it all blends. It all like looks really good. It's a lot more forgiving. It's also compressed too. It can save, sometimes, it can save a little bit of space. Yeah, there's a question?
But I was going to say, they're a lot smaller than JPEGs. Because in the project I've been working on, our artists have given me JPEGs and PNGs, same thing, the PNGs are a lot smaller.
I think they can be, but I think it depends. I mean, if you've got a really photographic image where it's got a lot of variation and stuff like that, I think it's relative. I think it's a little bit relative. The last thing I'm just going to show is I just think it's fun, the mute button on the board here. So it's kind of fun. This is just an animated GIF that set as the control, and so really the rect of the GIF is from here to here to here to here. But the only thing that's drawn is these 3 elements, and the rest of it's transparent. So it's kind of fun. I just thought. All right. Let's see, well, I'm actually like going faster than I thought. I'm surprised. So there are a couple things I brought to show just in case, and I guess I'll do it assuming there's still a working router here. Hopefully that will work. Give me a minute. Please, please, please. Oh. All right, well, it looks like it's working. This is what would you call it? It's kind of a self-promotional stack, which eventually is to be used on, available from the site, from my site. And it's basically going to showcase a lot of Rev stuff within the Rev context. And so along the lines of where you've been hearing today of doing a splash screen standalone, which is purely, that's all it is, and then it launches stuff from the web. That's what this is right here. This is a kind of a viewer which has different channels, what they call channels at the top. This is great because it's like a T1 or something. So what it's doing is, as I'm switching these things up here, it's pulling down images and content from the net, and you just have to take my word for that. But it's going so fast. There's usually like a little working progress display indicator up here. In any event, the only reason I show this is because it has some samples that are kind of appropriate, again, to doing like custom UI. Hopefully this will work. This is a kind of a mixer toy that has all custom controls. These are all kind of circular sliders that work here. These are all custom widgets. Kind of a balance setting that occurs here. If I can do this really fast, I don't know if I can. Where are we? I can load up a track on one side. Load up a track on the other side and play it. And this dynamically switches the levels between the two. do this automatically as well. All right, stop. Little kind of radial display progress up here. There's a little paused indicator that's up at the top. There's a little kind of pointless help thing in here. This is all custom window shape. The thing that's custom window shapes are great, but I think of how many stacks am I going to have to go back through and update the window masks on these things. It's like, I probably got like about 4 dozen stacks. It's going to take forever. Some more kind of goofy musical toys that you guys might not have seen. Some of you might have seen these last year. This is another pointless, God. That's like a 2 meg file and it just downloaded like instantaneously. This is like a pointless mixer file that combines a few different concepts here of these kind of radial slider things that work on a curve. This has a 6-channel QuickTime track that each one of these sliders adjusts. So I can turn down all the tracks. I don't know if you can hear that. So I can selectively enable each one of these. Then there's a couple of different visualizations that go along with this, and I use that term loosely because this is this is just replacing some GIF images or cycling some color or doing something that's natively built into Rev. It's not really rocket science, but it's more kind of the overall visual that I'm shooting to put together as kind of a cohesive appearance and experience. So all this kind of stuff is basically repeatedly setting colors, back colors of graphic images. This is setting the position of a graphic slider that corresponds to a percentage of the volume. What else do we have here? This is about 30, I think it was about 32 GIF images that I think I started out with like 150 and then I wow, I don't need that many. And it was bogging down a lot file size wise. So just again, pumping a GIF image into a single placeholder image object that's on the card. And it's just, the background is transparent, so it integrates with the background color. And then this is a vector graphic that's being repetitively resized from a set of custom properties. So I think there were about, if I remember correctly, about 8 to 10 custom properties that hold all the points. This is a single, that's right, this is a single graphic object that has its points set dynamically from custom properties. If I can bring that up. Some of you might have seen a while ago some experiments I was doing with some fake 3D stuff, and you can spin things and rotate things around, and it uses Jeff Canyon's concept of having a single vector graphic that you can set points to, like thousands of points, and create all these discontiguous objects. We can show that later if there's time. Does anybody have any questions so far? I'm just going to show like pointless things, more stuff, if you want to see like more stuff. Yeah. I'm a holdout. For me, it's a little more. It's extensible for me, and it's very bare bones. Which for me and a couple of the other kind of old users here, the bare bones approach is really nice. For me, when I use Rev, I want to get the property of a field, so I click on the field, and then that inspector thing shows up, and then it resizes, and then I got to go to the pull-down menu and find the thing that I want to edit, and then I got to look for, it's like 27 steps for me. And, in Metacard, it's not that different, but, when I double-click something, the thing is like right there, and it's, it's just it's direct. It's ugly. It's very, ironically, for somebody who's so much into the visual, it's very ugly and it's very unappealing, but it's fast, it's bare bones, it gets to the meat of what you want to do really quickly. And then just for myself, it was, I don't know, I have a few things that I built tools like so many of the other people here that are, just really brilliant folks, just made some of my own tools for dealing with things like alignment, for numerical position. I need this stuff, information instantaneously. I don't want to have to go through like menus of things to find it. I need it to be dynamic. So just, it's a personal taste. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, you know, that's one of the things that I think should be encouraged with this. I mean, you know, we've got this platform that's just monstrous. We're all going to have different ways of working, and if people, I mean, if they want to jump through the hoops and take shoulder the burden of it, it's a nightmare doing like, you know, editing tools if you really get into it. But you know, the more there are, the better. I mean, we all work different ways, so why not create tools that, you know, I do this one thing a certain way, I really want to, you know, do that and then make it available to everybody. So that, you know, I don't know if we really want to get into this. There's a couple of tools here that I use that are, you know, kind of little quick palette things that kind of get out of the way. They're dockable, which, you know, for repositioning. But you know, things for, let's come back here. This is why I haven't released these. You know, it's something for doing alignment. You know, I come from a graphics background, and the alignment in Rev for me doesn't work the way I expect. I mean, sometimes you want to align stuff to the first thing you select, but other times it's no, just go to the leftmost or the rightmost thing. I think that's kind of more, that's the way every graphics program on the planet works. So I think it kind of makes sense to do that. You know, distributing, there's a couple of additional, you know, do you have time to get into this? I'm going to do it really fast. I take a couple of objects here.
Ooh, you can draw objects like that interactively?
Believe it or not, they didn't skimp on that feature. So I don't know if this is, yeah, okay, we'll try this. There's beyond the standard alignment here, which is just basically top left, top right, you know, all left, all right, top bottom. There's a few things that I did to, you know, I guess just increase, like, you know, whatever they say, like productivity, like matching the edges of things without having to reposition them. If I go in here, I can get it back. This, again, moves to the most extreme. I don't know if you can make it out there, but there's a little indicator that shows either the topmost edges or the minimum topmost edges, if that makes sense. You know, this will, just like two things. This will align the very farthest most top edge. I don't know what this will do. Or the most minimum topmost edge. I don't know where it went. I think it's something underneath here. But it's really, again, like stuff that I've done to kind of enhance, you know, I don't know, work differently than what is provided in the standard editor, and just going a little bit beyond that. Let's see. Here, we'll look at some more pointless stuff. Let's see, what's what you might not have seen.
What is that battleship game?
Oh, that's good, because that takes a while to download. Okay, we can do that. This was okay. Spoken like a designer. It's got to look good. The game sucks. It doesn't play very well, but I think it looks pretty good. It was an attempt to make a battleship game, and I was hoping to make it. I have to talk to you about this actually, making it kind of playable over the net. But how do we get around the firewall thing? I don't know. Anyway, easily. So this is a designer's take on Battleship and doing it in Rev. It's downloading some audio right now. The audio is, you know, that's one thing that Rev could use a lot of help on. Audio is like really dated, and it's got to get, you know, everybody does multi-channel stuff. I mean, Rev has got to have this now. In any event, I can kind of take this apart here really quick. This is, I can get this. This is a series of images that are being put into a single graphic. I rendered these out in something else, and they're just being pumped into a single image repetitively. And to cut down on the overhead, I trimmed it out to the minimum amount of space that's needed to match the background. So instead of updating the entire card here, it's only updating this portion of it, which you know, makes it faster and also requires less time to redraw because you're not updating the whole stack. There's some bubbles here. These are all individual ping images that are just dynamically by script being set to move the card. You can move small stuff with little impact. It works, very easily. So this is the interface for it. Get this out of the way here. The idea was that you're supposed to enable it. Whereas Battleship was ships, this is submarines. And then you position each one of the submarines around here. You rotate this. The controls actually respond too. All these custom controls down here you can click and interact with. There's control keys that make it a little bit easier. So once you position all your submarines on the grid, you click that. It's a little audio feedback. You have to move around on the shooting side. You get to take your shot. It gives you some audio feedback. The big difficulty with this is it's really slow. And so I did my turn, and now the computer's going to do its turn, or Rev's going to do its turn. So the game kind of goes on and on like that. Left, right, left, right. There's a couple of things in here which, I'm not going to go through the whole game, but if I remember this correctly, there's a little, like a hit thing, is this right? Yeah. So when you get hit, when you get attacked, then the UI responds appropriately. There's a help system that was built in here with kind of a little bit of story behind it, and so this is just, flipping some images here, changing some transparency. This was mostly an exercise in doing audio feedback. There's a ton of audio in here. I think there's like 5 or 6 player objects because, again, Rev is so limited with doing multiple channels. The only way to do that is to use multiple players. And so you assign each sound to a different player. And, again, half a dozen players. It's not a very effective way to do it, but it's the only way to do it right now. Sure, yeah. I mean, we're all about questions. Things that you're looking for help for in anything you've ever done with images or graphics. That was actually one thing I was going to try to cover separately was if some of you are still maybe a bit confused about what format each format offers. I mean, you have like vector graphics, which are technically very fast. I mean, there's low overhead to using them. You can interactively scale them without any performance problem. You can have all the different shapes and everything. You can control them in Rev. The drawback is anything that's not rectangular is aliased, so you get the stair stepping when you use it. Providing any kind of translucency for it is difficult. There's like really minimal ink effects that you can use with graphics, so that's kind of not. That's a big limitation right there if that's what you're looking to do. They rotate a lot better than images, though. I mean, if you take a vector object and rotate it, the image, if you've ever rotated images in Rev right now, it gets kind of that little kind of jagged, thing on the outside, or little masking problem that needs to be addressed. Images, on the other hand, transparency, gradients, photographic. I mean, they're two completely different types of use. But you can do some crossover. If you make a completely opaque, solid image object, you can set its blend level and change its translucency and make it look like a graphic because it's just a rectangle. So there's a lot of things you can kind of fake each format a little bit. There's a little bit of crossover there. So I'm sorry, other questions? Anything? Anyone? Yeah?
Do you think that the new deep mask feature would enable us to make a walking cycle, like create a stack with a walking man? Would it be fast enough to make a walking cycle on the screen, like those old ships that we left on the desktop?
Here's the problem. Right now, the repetitive mask, or repeatedly setting the window mask or the window shape of a stack, It won't do it instantaneously. There is a little bit of time in between. I mean, if you set the send in or the repeat count to 0, you want to do it as quickly as possible. There's probably a good quarter second or fifth of a second delay in between each time it updates the mask. If you're going to do that and combine a moving image inside the mask, there's also going to be a little penalty time for updating that. But with something like a human motion where you kind of step and then step and then step, it might be possible. The trade-off might be acceptable, but for something you want smooth movement, probably not. Changing the contents of the window and changing the mask of the window at the same time will be a bit slower. So, yeah. Anyone? Is that it? Are we good? Let's see what this says. This is a little Ouija board. I didn't ask a question, but we'll see what it says. So there you have it. The risks are low. So thank you very much.